pardon the dishevelled appearance. I'm on school holidays and I'm refusing to shave and get out of bed before 10:30 in the morning, well, at least for the first few days anyway. Just a bit of recovery time. I'm going to be doing a few videos on art as well. That's what I do for a living. I teach high school art, and I just thought it'd be a nice change for me to present a little bit of stuff on art. I haven't been doing a lot of stuff in the studio over the last probably 5 or 6 years. Secondary teaching tends to take up a lot of your time. So if you're going to art school to be an artist and you want to be a visual arts teacher as well, I wouldn't say that it's impossible. Probably if you're if you're a single person without a family and everything else, you'll probably find it quite not easy, but you'd find it easier to find the time. But in the last 5 years, with the second job and the renovations and everything else, excuses. But I certainly am planning on getting back into more art making. I've built over the last 5 years. I've been building a studio, and when that's nearer to completion, I'll give everybody a little tour of that. But today I'm going to be talking about something that's really important to do, and it's also something that in the last probably 3 years I've stopped doing, but which I need to revisit, and that's keeping an artist's visual diary or sketchbook. If you're at high school, you call it a VAPD. It's really kind of like a way of exploring ideas, and when an idea comes to you, getting it down on paper, because quite often if you're working as an artist, stuff will come at you in sort of out of dreams. Sometimes it'll come subconsciously, or it'll just pop into your head, and the brain, being the fallible device that it is, tends to forget it very, very quickly. So unless you write it down, it's gone. And it's quite funny that even now I'm looking back at some of these sketchbooks, which are sketchbooks that are 3-4 years old. There's ideas in here for work that I'd completely forgotten. So later on, when I do get back in the studio, if there's an idea, it's still in the book and I can revisit it, and it means that I don't sit there with a blank look on my face wondering what I'm going to paint next or draw next. So definitely it's worthwhile keeping a sketchbook, and I'm going to give you a little tour of these two that I've got here and show you some of the ideas that came about, how they were explored in the sketchbook, and then final visual art work that resulted from that idea. So you can see the gestation of an idea, and sometimes that can be over a period of years, and then finally a final product. So stay tuned. Okay, well, this is the one of the sketchbooks I kept in my second or third year at art school when I was doing printmaking. As you can see, my preference is to have a perfect bound visual arts process or visual diary, mainly because if you've got a ring binding, the pages can move around like this. They rub up against each other. Using any medium that's not really well fixed, it will smudge. I just think it's a much better way. These used to be a lot more expensive, but they're not anymore. You can get them really cheap, so definitely worthwhile. Also, I write my name in the corner over here, because you want to be able to get it back if you do misplace it. So here we have some experiments in etching work that I was doing in Taglio printmaking, and I was looking at portraiture at the time, and even it comes down to putting down colours that I was using so that I'm not going to forget in the process. And anytime I had a chance to draw, I used to do it. It's the old cat that we used to have in the house, and a bit of silly self-portraiture, playing around with the idea of drawing of hands and all that sort of stuff. So this is drawing is an opportunity to explore and to have fun, and it's really the gestation of an idea. So some people treat their sketchbook as an object of pride, something that's a finished artwork in itself, and if that works for them, that's great. I'm not judgmental of that, but I certainly scribble in my process diary, even write people's phone numbers in it, little notes about what I need to do for the shopping. It really doesn't matter for me, because it's really just a diary or a log of what I'm doing in life, because that's what it's about. Life is what you're doing, and that's what goes in your sketchbook. Okay, while I was at art school, we did a trip to Goat Island, which is what we used to do for drawing week at the National Art School. And, I did a few sketches. I'm not really into landscape. It doesn't really float my boat. So usually if something doesn't interest you that much, the resulting drawings are not that interesting. It's a big picture of a shed that was on the island. So yeah, not very exciting stuff. We were asked to do a little bit of abstract work as well, and this is like developing sketches for the abstract work that we were doing. Sleeping people, one of my favorites, because people who are asleep tend to be willing victims for a sketch. You go, the great white hunter's gone out looking for some prey. Cats too. Cats are great. Cats like to sleep. They stay in one position for quite a while when they're asleep, so they're a great thing to draw. Here we go. We got a Lucian Freud portrait of his mother, and then I've got a very, very bad portrait of Ben that I did. So, I've written, this is lyrical, and this is so much the opposite. It can't all be Lucian Freud. This is an exploration of ideas for my final year's worth of printmaking. Originally I was going to be doing genre scenes of people working in the studio at the National Art School in etchings, but I did a few of those and they turned out alright, but then I ended up going in a completely different direction and examining basically my origins, because I'm a mixed Greek and Dutch extraction. And so it went in a completely different direction, and I'll show you some of the development of those ideas when I do find them, and the artworks that result, because it can give you an idea of how radically different an idea can be from the finished artwork. And that's what art's about for me anyway. It's organic. It's an organic process. It's not about final conception and then creating that conception. It's about exploring an idea, and that's what's fun about it. Quite often when I was at art school, I'd be doing a lot more reading than I get to do now, and if I read a book on art and it had ideas that I found quite interesting, I'd jot down the key points. This is a way of revisiting stuff that you've read and without having to actually get back and read the book itself. And this was a little critique of Art and Otherness, Crisis in Cultural Identity by Thomas McEvilley, and it was looking at the development of art and art history from the modernism days, when art was mostly out of Paris and New York, right up to the 90s and globalism and the recognition of other types of genres of art, the advent of postmodernism, all that sort of stuff. So it was, this is obviously something that I read 5-6 years ago and I'd actually forgotten reading it. So by reading this little note here, it rekindles those ideas. And this is another sleeping baby. Someone brought their baby over, and opportunity to sketch. More ideas. I was heading sort of in that sort of postmodern idea, because I was at art school and I was thinking, well, I can't just do, literal, figurative stuff, because they'll cane me, they'll give me a bad mark. And so I was trying to sort of head in that direction of being more with it, more cool, more in fashion. And in the end, I said, bugger that, I'm just going to do what I want to do. So that's what I did. And I will show you some of those ideas when they come along. And this is where I started heading in the direction that I finally went with, and I was basically mining photographs that my grandmother had left behind. She'd passed away a few years before that, and it was an opportunity to revisit mostly my Greek heritage. I don't have a lot of photographs from my mother's side of the family, which is Dutch, and that might be an opportunity to explore later in life.